It's 2025 and everyone's inbox is flooded with the same 4-bar copy-paste chords, soulless music, aka loops. What I can't understand is, why would you bother when you could make something impactful, like a real sample? That's why people like Frank Dukes, Q Beats, and Mario Luciano win. They make samples, not loops. In this video, I'm going to break down 4 fundamentals of sample making, and then at the end, I'm going to combine them step by step into a crazy sample that you can flip today. So stick around, because once you see the difference, you'll never go back to making loops again. So first and foremost, we need to talk about space. Space is like a tool. Space can be used creatively to make or break a sample. The mindset is you want your sample to play out at a steady pace with twists and turns and pauses in between, and not have everything crammed together with ideas and sounds fighting to compete with each other and playing all at once. So let your sounds breathe and work together. And here are some methods that we can use to do that. Essentially, call and response is where 2 sounds will kind of take the spotlight momentarily and then pass it back to the other and kind of go back and forth between the 2 sounds, creating this dance almost. It just works really well when it comes to making melodies, because it's better to have things playing in their own pocket and complementing each other than playing all at the same time. But here's just a quick example. So we've got this melody here. Now, just by looking at this melody, you can see that we've got some pauses where there's nothing playing. And that happens at the start of every single bar. In the chord progression here, I have a melody that is playing at the start of a bar. So if we just play them both together, see that dun 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 dun, that plays before this melody. This turn, then back up here, back down here. See, that is so much better than if I just had it playing like this. You see how like much rhythm and bounce we've lost by doing that. And also, you can't really even distinguish the 2 sounds that well when they're playing at the same time either. Call and response is very, very useful. So let's make something simple that has a call and response element so I can really kind of demonstrate it to you guys. Let's go ahead and go into synth experiments to speed this up a little bit. I'm just going to get myself like a starting sound. Now we need to grab 2 different phrases, throw them in, and then I will show you about call and response. Okay, so with this sound here, we have a pocket at the end here. This sort of section here is pretty much empty. There's just like, so this gives us an opportunity to add a call and response here. There you go. So that's just a real simple example right there, using the new kit synth experiments, which if you guys are looking for an all-round amazing tool of inspiration, something royalty free, full of sounds that are really exciting and fun to use, check it out, man. Link down below. So that's call and response. Let's talk about texture. Texture kind of represents a type of sound which doesn't really have notes, but it just fills that space with some nice tones, and it makes something empty feel not empty, even though it still is technically empty melodically, if that makes sense. So if I just grab, let's say, I want some kind of chord element. So I've got the chord progression right here into MIDI form, but in order to demonstrate this properly, I need to just bounce it out real quick. And I'm going to stretch it to twice the length. And this is what we'll use as the basis of our example. So this is like a standard chord progression, right? And you can see we've got all this space in here where we could add like melodies and different ideas and stuff. But I'm going to show you the power of texture, right? Let's just duplicate this, make it unique. I'm going to put it on a channel of effects that I just put together. It's just chorus, reverb, and delay. So this is what it sounds like with the effects so far. Let's go ahead and add some kind of like granulizer or warper of some kind to really mess this sound up and take it from like a melodic element to a texture. I really like EFX Fragments from Arturis. It's a great plugin. Oh, this is great because it has that like randomness to it that we want. We want it to sound like random, textural, different. So because it seems to do changing at random, I'm gonna just export this out at length and then kind of like pick my favorite parts from it. That's one type of texture, right? But then I could go ahead and add like a different type of texture, more of like a vocal ambience texture, right? If we go into patch play, into the texture folder, and we grab like a noise layer as well. Listen to this. So we've got a couple different types of texture in there, and I feel like that definitely proves the point that this sounds way more full now, despite there being no new melodic information. It's literally just this main chord progression turned into a texture with some like noise and some like ambience down the bottom. That's it. And it's carried it so much further towards being like done. So if you feel like you're at the point with your melody where you've got a great foundational element, but you don't want to overdo it, but you still think it's missing something, then definitely go down the texture route. But if you guys are struggling to create space in your melodies and your samples, and you're wondering like if there's an easy hack, I actually think I found it. So I just made this in 74 BPM, and I even dragged it out to be twice as slow from there. Alternatively, I normally would have made this in like, what's double this, 148. If you do that, double time BPMs, I feel like because you're working quicker, it's like harder to leave space. Is that just me? I feel like that's like a valid point. It just becomes so much easier to pace yourself and to utilize that space. So next up, we got sound selection. This is massive. This is probably the most important one of the entire video. There are no rules when it comes to sound selection, but a good rule of thumb if you're struggling is to have 2 to 3 core sounds to your sample, and you want to have one of those sounds be kind of typical of the style that you're going for. The second sound should be somewhat experimental, kind of in the middle ground between like normal and crazy, and then the third sound should be like completely different, like really unique, but it should just be something that really catches the ear. And when you kind of put that together, you get a nice little sandwich of sound that is just like easy to kind of digest, sounds good, and yeah, I'm hungry now. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So this is a really good preset. It's called Love All, and it is essentially a synth combined with a Rhodes. Nothing crazy. This is going to serve as our standard sound, right? That is a very simple chord progression. Now let's move on to the more, somewhat unique, but definitely still within like the normal genre of what we're working in, something cool. So patch play is perfect for this because it just has like sounds from popular synths, but stuff that's obviously sound designed by us to sound pretty interesting and pretty cool. So I found this sound here. It's called Glitchy Juno. It just gives you that kind of standard Juno sound with a twist. It's a typical sound with kind of abnormal characteristic to it. So that's perfect for our sort of like medium sound, right? Yeah, it's nice. It's cool. Now we need to add our third and final sound, which needs to be something like really out there, really different to kind of complete this picture. Okay, let's try this. This one is a lot more understated than I kind of imagined it would be, but it's still like another layer. It's still quite out there, like the glide, the pitch down, it's definitely catches you by surprise. So if you take this workflow and incorporate it into your process of making melodies, I guarantee you that you will no longer overthink sound selection, and you will kind of just do it and just kind of lean into your natural taste and what you're kind of drawn to. Sound selection's fun, have fun with it, don't overthink it. Try this method if you want. There are actually other things to bear in mind when it comes to sound selection as well. We need to pick sounds that work together both in timing and also frequency range. What I mean by that is you don't want to be picking sounds that are both like sustained, for instance, or are both really plucky, or maybe both of them are hitting at the exact same frequency range, you know, like the low mids or the high mids or the low highs, you know, it's just going to make it a lot harder for them to work together. Whereas if you choose sounds that are kind of total opposites in that regard, you're going to set up yourself a nice little contrast in sounds. So this sound is just going to serve as our bass sound. That's a very simple example, right? So that's our kind of low, plucky, short, sustained sound, right? Let's go and choose something completely different to that. So this is a great example because I'm not even using a call and response. I'm literally just playing slightly different melodies at the exact same time. Like this shouldn't work, but it sounds good because the sound selection is so on point. We've got such a polarity in sound, you know, a contrast between this sound up here and this one down here, that it just works no matter what I do, really. I mean, it's so easy. As soon as you start getting into like using slightly similar sounds, it becomes harder and harder to get something in that sounds good. When it comes to making samples, the goal is to make it sound like a real record. You know, you kind of want it to sound like it was made by real people playing real music. That's like the goal when it comes to making samples, I feel like 99% of the time. I feel like soul is a great genre to analyze in that respect. Not in terms of the sound of it, but its pacing and it's kind of like the way it sounds so real and so human, right? You'll hear like a lot of random bridge sounds and this is great to incorporate into making samples, and it's a very easy like cheat code kind of way to get to that point. Get into the habit of making something with the intention of then flipping it. If you've ever flipped a sample, you know that the more sections you have to kind of work with and pull from, the better. If you only have one little loop, it's kind of hard to make that stretch to a whole beat. Let's put that into practice anyway and see what that looks like. So we've got a cool little starting point here, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it over to the second half to kind of emphasize how important it is to add those random elements to come in and out unexpectedly. Just adds so much like drama and so much depth to it. So for this second half only, I'm just going to have this crazy like top line melody kind of come in. Yeah, that first bit was kind of sick. That's it. So if we put this now on a more polished version of this sound. It's more mono sounding now. Quick effects on this. Tape J37 maybe. That's so nice. And we can take it further than just inside of the same sound. This is just our piano, right? But let's say in the second half, I'm going to bring in some kind of string element, let's say. Oh, okay, let's try that. And we can just keep recording stuff in like this for this section, just build up. So what else we can add in? Maybe there's something else that could be cool as well. So to keep adding to that idea of bringing stuff in and out at random, giving it more options creatively to chop and play with and stuff, we're going to just add a few more sounds in here. In fact, let's make a clone of this pattern here. What I can do is on this clone version, I might just take out all of the chords and just have this melody. would have expected that. Or maybe even for this version, we do another version here, but we could like do something with the chords though that makes them sound a lot more interesting. Strum this. Can I bring this all in again? And let's just finish it off with a little vocal. This has been long enough in the making now, but as you can see, man, we've kind of got some sounds that only come in once or come in for a bit and then they disappear and then maybe they come back, and the chords dropping out all of a sudden here and getting rid of the melodies here and doubling up on the chords, and a lot of experimentation and like thought has gone into what you're hearing. You know, it's not a case of just putting together a couple different elements and then pasting it down the timeline and that's it, you know what I'm saying? So this is really where the distinction between a loop and a sample kind of comes together. And yeah, we've got loads of different cool elements coming in and out. We've got like a random drum element here, just comes in out of nowhere, some vocals and shit. Try and make your samples as less repetitive as possible, and there's so many different ways you can do that as I've just shown you. So yeah, definitely look into doing that. It's super important. So the final tip for the video is all about imperfections, and that's the reason why your melodies probably don't connect as much, is because they just don't sound real, and the giveaway is in the lack of imperfections. To make something imperfect is to make it real. Now, imperfections are a lot easier to manufacture when you're working with real instruments in real life, guitars, pianos, vocals, synths, anything like that, because it's harder to make them not sound real when they are, you know what I'm saying? But we can still do some stuff in the door to kind of like replicate that imperfection and that human element. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some chords that are generated by the computer. Alright, so we got ourselves some chords here. Started them off with the chord generator and we kind of filled in the gaps ourselves and stuff. But yeah, they sound extremely plain. So the first thing I like to do, instantly throw the timing back. Get the strumizer up and just like strum these chords a little bit. See, instantly that sounds better. Next thing we can do is velocities. We can change the velocities. Now we can manually do this, I think. We just bring the bass notes down a bit. Just opens it up a little bit more. Turn these velocities gradually higher. Like that. So it's like you hit the last key a little bit harder than the first two. Like that. Throw in one of these little notes here. What we could also do is throw in some top notes as well. Kind of record something in. Just make it sound like there's someone like freestyle over the top of it. Let's go ahead and change this sound now to a bit more of a realistic piano. So that already sounds very realistic. Now we can just add a few effects to it just to make it sound a bit nicer. See, that sounds 100 times more realistic than the other one did, 100%. And we can even add in like another instrument which is quite hard to get to sound real, and that's a guitar. Sonic Extension Nylon Sky. In my opinion, this is one of the most accurate and nice sounding acoustic guitars out there, especially if you get the strummer as well. Let's just really crank that realism up. What makes this sound so real is all the imperfections and stuff. We've turned the realism up on this plugin, which I guess enhances like pickup noise and just acoustic sort of like imperfections and stuff that you would get when you actually play it. When you slide your finger down the fret and you get that like squeaky sound and shit, noises that you wouldn't even think about if you were playing the guitar. But when you're not, and you're using a plugin or a one shot, like you just don't get any of that and it sounds so like bare. This just adds that back in. This plugin's really good for that. So let's go ahead and add in something else now. The model goes crazy on this. It's actually sick. So we can combine staccato, tremolo, and arco, sustain, I guess, to get a really realistic sound. Let's pan these string elements left and right a little bit. We are not done yet. Let's go for, I think it's called like a shrill, or is it slur? Like that. That'll sound crazy. We could clone this string we just added, copy and paste, put it in a different pattern, and pan one way and one the other. We could have this as a slightly different sounding one. Vibraphones are kind of cool, to be fair. Alright, so we've got a few different sections kind of mapped out here. On the timeline, all of the imperfections have made it what it is. It's made it sound more realistic, more fun, and just a lot better. So here's some more stuff we could do real quick with this melody now. It's at this stage, is we could actually automate the pitch a little bit to give it a bit of like a bend, like a bit of a wow. Just gives it that kind of like psychedelic feel now. Imperfections, man. It sounds alive now. It sounds like it's got like a personality. It sounds real. You know, it's just little things like that, man. When it's all combined together, game changer, for real. So all we need to do now is put it all together and make something insane. So yeah, sit back, relax. This is going to take a while. So I'm going to start with some chords. Determines the mood of the sample and just kind of will get us up and running quick. Okay, let's go for, again, a slower tempo is just the key for making these samples, man. You gotta do it. That thing there was kind of cool. Like, I could have that as the end part, you know? So we're going to have to build to that and then beyond that. It actually works being off key. My ears are tricking me because of this and this are right next to it, so it kind of like blends in. Fuck it. Sounds dope. I was thinking like a lead guitar. I think that'll sound crazy on this. Try and set up some kind of call and response because we've got such a nice gap here. What about like a bass guitar? Another acoustic guitar would sound sick. Maybe we'll change the tone of the acoustic bass a little bit. Okay, I'm going to eliminate this electric guitar because I feel like it just jeopardizes the space of the sample too much. It takes up way too much like room. This is cool here, this little... That's sick. Some effects on this guitar. Another dimension D, I think. Let's see what other instruments we can add to this. Nice. Maybe throw some little accents in to beef it up a little bit. Ooh. Let's throw ourselves an ARP on this. That's pretty much it. So let's break down the final sample. As you would have heard just then, it sounds slightly different to the last thing you would have seen me do, and that's because I did do a few changes off camera, which I'll get into. I basically bounced it out and then stretched it a bit further and pitched it up a little bit just to make it sound more like a sample. We've got this shaper box pan kind of moving slowly left and right, a tape J37 to give it a bit of tape, you know, nostalgic kind of feel, and then just an EQ just to take off a little bit of that low end as well. That gives it like more of a sample feel, and it also enhances all of what we've done. This sample definitely has space in it. Just looking at the MIDI, we've left gaps everywhere. Gaps, 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 gaps. It has room to breathe for sure. It has a flow. Next up, we've got sound selection. For this sample, we went a little bit safe with the sound selection. We didn't go too crazy. The main sound is literally like the most basic synth ever. And then the counter melody is a guitar. The interesting part of the sound design of this sample is the fact we're combining synth and acoustic instruments together in harmony. It sounds amazing. And all these accents and stuff as well definitely enhance it. Repetitiveness. I don't think it has much repetitiveness really. I mean, maybe if I kind of deleted this section here to eliminate the shorter chords going on for too long. We're constantly adding and taking stuff away. It keeps it interesting. So it definitely feels alive. It feels like real music and it isn't too repetitive at all. And then imperfections. Honestly, with this one, I don't think we've left in too many imperfections because we didn't really play much in. Everything here is quantized. That kind of brings me on to the fifth and final point of this video, is that you don't have to use all of these points in every single sample to make it qualify as a sample. This is kind of just like a guide, not a checklist. So yeah, we don't have to use every single one. That's basically it for me, man. I think I made some pretty crazy shit in this video. I hope you guys agree, and I hope you enjoy as well, and most importantly, learn something new from this. If you want to get some of our sound kits at synthpalace.com, the links will be down below in the description. We kind of dipped into a few different kits in this one. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.